It is official. The Scott Servais era in Seattle is now over. It was just announced by Ken Rosenthal that he is being let go as the manager of the Seattle Mariners. So that means starting tomorrow with our first game of this next homestand, we're going to be having a new interim head coach or manager, which is Dan Wilson. Very, interesting decision all around. It's very complex, the whole Scott Servais argument. We've had it ad nauseum on my channel, all the other channels in this content space, and just in the Mariners ecosystem. It's been going on for quite a bit now, especially the last few months. And about the end of May, we had a good 10-game lead or so on the division. Since then, we've lost 15 games in the standings. We're now 5 under. Last 2 months, we've been pretty much the worst team in baseball other than the White Sox, both record-wise and just other statistics-wise. The main issue has been our offense pretty much all year. It has the 4th worst batting average in the live ball era through the same amount of games, which is 128 at this point. It leads to the question of, can you put all the blame on Scott Servais? And I think it's pretty clearly no, you can't. However, when you lose and collapse in the way of having a 10-game lead on the division and being 5 under in just the span of about 2 months, it felt like something had to happen. And I think we all kind of knew that this was probably going to happen, especially after this most recent road trip. We headed to Detroit, got swept there by the Detroit Tigers. Then we headed to Pittsburgh. We lost a series to the Pittsburgh Pirates, both sub 500 teams. And then we got swept by the Dodgers. We have returned back to 500 as of last night. So it kind of was one of those things where we all figured on this off day, if there was ever a time that they were going to let go of Scott Servais, it was probably going to be today, and it looks like we were all correct on that. I wasn't really sure if it was going to happen. I felt like they probably are still going to try to finish out the year with him, but really, at least as far as the last couple months are concerned, when we think about that in the vacuum, it's been, there's been some bullpen mismanagement issues or in-game call issues. The problem that's been irking me the most with Scott has been his rhetoric after the games, especially after a lot of these losses. Been saying just about the same thing of, we'll get through this. It's just a rough patch. Every team goes through this. I think that felt, especially after a good 2 months of that, it's fine to say that at the end of May when you're going through a 1 or 2 week stretch, but the fact it was about 2.5 months and you're still saying that, to me it felt like it was kind of time, clearly, that they're just the fire wasn't there. And this team has been lifeless for a good 2 months now, outside of a couple series, especially at home on the weekends. It was kind of time, and once again, you can't blame everything on Scott. I do think that the next thing should be Jarrett DeHart, or like I've said it before, the hitting department needs to be gutted this offseason for sure, because it's just unacceptable to have one of the worst offenses in not only Mariners history but like MLB history for this year, especially with some of the guys that you have on this team, like a Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and some guys who have been underperforming. Jorge Polanco's finally turned it around a bit, but he was definitely really bad the first half of the season. Mitch Garver is having a career worst year. More things have to happen, and that's the thing with this Scott decision, is that this cannot be the only thing they do by the end of this winter. There needs to be a lot more turnaround than just Scott. Some people think Jerry and Justin, or both, and or need to go. I'm not sure where I'm at on that just yet, but this was kind of one of those things, those last Hail Marys, really, that you've squandered one of the best opportunities to win the AL West in a long time, and you've squandered it so far, and now you have a really big uphill battle to try to make it happen, which I think a lot of us, our hope is kind of gone on that. So this was kind of one of those moves that felt like it maybe needed to be made. I know it's not a for sure solution to the problem, that's for sure, and Dan Wilson is taking over, which he's never been on a big league coaching staff, which I think is an interesting choice. It seems from what I've seen on Twitter, at least, that people think Dan Wilson is a lot more of a nostalgia hire for this last month or so, because he was a catcher for a long time for the Mariners. He's in the Mariners Hall of Fame. I know he's been working a lot this year with the Mariners as far as the catching department. He spoke about it on some of the broadcasts he's been on Root Sports, that he's been working with them. So he clearly has a little bit of like a coaching role, kind of just like an unofficial one. So we'll see how that goes with the interim manager position. I thought it was probably going to go to Negron or Acta, but I mean, who knows how that would have gone anyways. It's just a weird time. And there's a couple of tweets that I really thought reigned true. Trident Gonzalez tweeted out that it's more just disappointing that it's gotten to this point, that we had to do something like this. This isn't fun. And I know some people are probably, celebrating Scott being gone. There's certainly people who just straight up do not like him as manager, which, if that's your opinion, fine. I'm never going to necessarily celebrate someone losing their job, but at the same time, felt like this is something that needed to probably happen at some point. I was not expecting him to be back for next year, that's for sure. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Scott Servais era being done. He ends it. He served the Seattle Mariners for 9 seasons now. He has racked up a win-loss record of 680, 642 for a 514 win-loss percentage there, and of course helped us break the drought in 2022 and led us to a postseason appearance. Obviously, the one postseason appearance people think is underwhelming and not necessarily enough, which I could agree with you a bit on that. But still, that you have to give him a little bit of credit for that. So, yeah, very weird time in Seattle Mariners world right now. But I would love to hear and know what you think. You can comment down below your thoughts about the Scott Servais, Dan Wilson changeout. I'd love to hear from you. You can like the video. You can subscribe as well. It'd help me out a lot. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for me in this one. I will see you in the next.